My intuition tells me you're Scott.
You are good. It's good intuition. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. I'm dysfunctional as hell, but I'm learning to enjoy it. So I judge that to be a good thing.
It is a good. As good as it's gonna get, right?
That's what I keep. Well, yeah, I think so. But yeah, on the overall scheme of the day, it's been a good day so far, and I'm excited to get to meet you and for us to act like we know what we're doing. And it's a highlight that you would ask me to be a part of your lovely offering to the world. So it's, in the words of Ice Cube, today was a good day.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out. Just going to set us up a little bit real quick here. This is the Veritas Holistic Health and Fitness interview series. And what we're doing is we're interviewing different people that have had an impact on myself personally and what I feel is an impact on humanity for whatever reason, whatever their field is. And you're one of those people, so I appreciate it. This is JP Sears, and he is ultra spiritual, and he is also a Czech practitioner, so a lot of the people out there know the Czech guys, and that's how we kind of all met. And you and I met about 5-6 years ago in a HLC 3 in passing. I think you were just at the Institute. But I really enjoyed being able to chat with you then, and I'm glad to be able to have you here now. And I follow your work, and I think it's a real great thing. So thanks for coming.
You're welcome, Scott. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I just hope that we don't screw this up, or else it'll ruin both our careers.
This is true. So yeah, my career is already in shambles, so it's already it's good. It can't get much worse than this, right? So I'm glad you're here, and we'll figure it out. There's always inevitable technical difficulty, and if you're not going to break your computer after the end of this, it wasn't a good interview. So tell me a little bit about kind of what you're up to right now.
Yeah, what I'm up to, working with people every day in my one-on-one client practice of emotional healing and helping people get in touch with their heart and soul, basically. And I'm also incredibly busy making my YouTube videos, both call it the sincere life guidance, health and healing videos, as well as my ultra spiritual comedy series on YouTube. I've also just written a book, and I'm now in the process of moving into the editing phase with the publisher. I'll be taking a trip out to do some book publishing meetings with the publisher, so I get to feel important about that. And what else I'm up to? I'm also doing my best to expand my comfort zones, and as in like break them and actually get uncomfortable in many respects. But right now, primarily expanding my comfort zone in the creative realms. I'm taking some improv classes, going to be doing a little bit of stand-up comedy, open mic stuff. So, I'm rolling around doing all of that stuff right now.
That made me feel like a little bit of a panic attack when you started saying open mic, so I imagine that's pushing you out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely. If you don't get the panic attack, it was funny. Let me tell you this. You didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you. Last night I was at my first open mic, just observing. Didn't get up on stage because I kind of wanted to assess the lay of the land, what happens here, and I'll actually participate perhaps as early as next week. But anyway, there was a guy who came in, and I'm just sitting there calm and cool because I'm not going to be getting up on stage. And he was a first-timer. First time he was going to get up on stage. Young guy, probably early 20s. The guy wasn't breathing. He was freaking out. Verge of a panic attack, if not.
Slightly sympathetic.
Just a bit. So he came up to me asking me for all this advice about, how do I do it? What if I get nervous on stage? He just thought I was like a regular because I looked so calm. So, of course, I started giving him advice because I think what he really wanted was connection and support. He didn't really need the nitty-gritty advice. So that was fun to pretend that I was an experienced, seasoned veteran of something I've never done.
Oh, wow. Well, if you get nervous, just take your clothes up on stage. That works for me, right?
I will definitely keep in mind that you do that.
Oh goodness. Well, yeah, that sounds like it'd be quite the trip and definitely push you out of your comfort zone. So tell me a little bit first, how did you come up with this ultra spiritual? What is that, an aspect of your personality? Is this just something that kind of popped up? How did this ultra spiritual come about?
Yeah, I can explain it in hindsight certainly better. I didn't have the foresight of like what the hell this was. When I was in the moment doing the first ultra spiritual video, I thought it was just a one-off video. It's kind of like, let me tell you how to be spiritual by telling you how not to be spiritual. Yeah, so just sort of a humorous, contrarian video. But now as it's grown into life of its own, what I'm kind of like come to realize is, yeah, the ultra spiritual character, I'm going to sound like just one of these artists, just like, oh, I'm an artist and you need to respect that. Speaking like a true artist, the ultra spiritual character is very much a part of my personality. He's a piece of me, and for the videos, it's like that piece of me gets to be seen to the exclusion of the rest of me. And for the videos, he gets amplified and colored in the way he needs to be for the videos. So yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people who find my YouTube channel do so through the ultra spiritual videos. Then they trickle in, subscribe, and see, hey, you have these other serious videos, JP, sincere videos. What's the deal? Are you sincere or are you humorous? And yes, I'm both. It's like, do you have a right hand or a left hand? Well, I've got both. So the character is very much a piece of me, and another piece of me is very sincere and just much more heartfelt in a direct way. So I've got inner conflict is what I'm really saying.
Or balance, right?
I like that. Spoken like a true optimist, but I love that. And to me that is balance. I know I've lived, especially in my early parts of life, by early I mean like up until like 2 years ago, I was out of...
Earlier today.
Yeah, like 10 o'clock this morning. But I had my breakthrough. Now I'm enlightened. But I would tend to live way out of balance, where I go through phases where like I'm just humorous. Like I can't take anything seriously. Or I start to get, read a little too much New Age stuff and I just get all sincere. Nothing else. Which to me, either way, is out of balance. To me, wholeness, balance, is being able to access both sides, the humorous and the sincere, without getting stuck in either side.
Absolutely.
For me personally, at least.
Well, and I think that's, I think a lot of us do that. You go through phases and waves, and you're ebbing and flowing, and you're integrating information, and you're integrating aspects of yourself, and sometimes they're in conflict, depending on how much you're willing to, acknowledge those sometimes shadow aspects of yourself. And probably a lot of it has to do with, the influences we had early on. I mean, I know Paul's a pretty intense guy, and sometimes that, sends people, or they assume he's intense, you know what I mean? So I think sometimes our assumption gets the better of me, with that as well. When I was going through all the stuff, it was kind of humorous because you get this HLC1 and you're kind of just new to it, and you're fresh-eyed, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing, and so then you start shifting, and it shifts your consciousness, and then you start seeing HLC like 2 and 3. You start seeing that everyone starts dressing like Paul, right? Everyone's got like fucking Birkenstocks on,
and shaved heads,
and it's like, dude, and it's like they're wearing the necklaces, and then you kind of go through that phase, and you're like, wait a minute. That's not, that was great for a while, and now I have to be me, and you can tell almost like which level a Czech person they are based off of that. Like, it cracks me up, and I was like, I wonder, did you notice that too?
Yeah, absolutely. I never got into the shaved head thing. In fact, I'm long hair a little bit the opposite, but absolutely. I mean, I remember when I was in my early, when I was 20 and first got connected with Paul, I'd start wearing short shorts. It was like, that's what Paul, my mentor, does. Like, it's especially back then, it was like horrible in the rest of society, but like, Paul has no fashion sense, totally disconnected from society, like in a good way.
Yeah.
So he had short shorts, so why wouldn't I?
I have my own collection.
So absolutely, and I think it's a step of our learning process, really. And I think it's absolutely cool to let it happen. I think at best we just don't want to get, or at worst we get stuck in it. But at best we go through the phase of essentially emulating our mentor's personality, which is kind of like we have to lose ourselves a little bit in order to find ourselves a little bit more. And I think that's incredibly natural with mentors. I think any mentor, to a degree, is a surrogate parent. I mean, a healthy mentor-mentee relationship, that's minimized. But like any parent relationship, we get attributes from our parents. I mean, we'll be compliant with some attributes and incredibly defiant with other attributes. Long hair, short shorts, defiance and compliance.
Exactly.
But either way, I think if we're being compliant or defiant with a mentor or parent, we're losing ourselves. But of course, I think the reason why we're working with a mentor in the first place is to find ourselves to a greater degree. And I think losing ourselves is part of the sacred process of finding ourselves. It's a step in the journey. It's not the end of it, but it's a step on our journey.
Exactly. Well, I found that many of my mentors typically amplify hidden parts of myself or less developed parts of myself, and so sometimes that exploration is possible because we're able to project onto them, and it's safe because they're powerful, they're strong, they're not scared of standing up in front of somebody and doing stand-up. So we can kind of amplify some shadow sides of ourselves, I think, as well,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think what I heard you say, and I love your wisdom you just dropped, that essentially when we get to see what we see in a mentor, it helps us give ourselves permission to own what we see. It's like, okay, I see great, powerful, force of nature in him. And if I see it in him, it means I have it in me, but I don't know how to see it in me without the beautiful reflection of this mentor. So I think gradually with the mentor, learn to say, what's my version of that? And how can I begin to see my version of that inside and express it, let alone express it in a way that's authentic to me. But yeah, I think those shadow things, not necessarily bad, but to me shadow means just those things we're unaware of about ourselves. Our mentors are powerful bringers of light.
Absolutely. Well, the shadow, in my opinion, too, is those hidden parts of ourselves, and it could be the gold of the shadow in the sense,
Sure.
Someone may be a beautiful singer, but when they were in second grade, some teachers like, can you not sing? And it got regulated back to that shadow, and sometimes those things are not negative; they're actually quite positive. They're just hidden. They're almost occulted in a sense, maybe even from ourselves, because we're not willing to touch base with them.
Absolutely. Yeah, my experience is that, yes, in our shadow, if you will, we hide our greatest shames. And just as significantly with what you're saying, Scott, we tend to hide our greatest gifts in our shadow because we've been through experience. Like I said, maybe it was second grade. They said, you can't sing. And we were a good enough student of life that we believed that. We were innocent enough to just, okay, I can't sing. Mom, dad, teachers said that, so okay, I bought into it. So the beautiful gifts of my singing get pushed into my shadow because I don't give myself permission to see them because I don't see other people seeing them. In fact, I see them seeing the opposite in me. So, of course, I can't have my gift come up. I got to keep it in my shadow because if it were to see the light of day, it would violate who they think I am. And I don't have a strong enough sense of self as a child to be me. As children, as part of the life process, we tend to become who we think other people think we are.
Exactly.
We have to lose ourselves to find ourselves. Boy, that's the mantra.
It is. It's like the mask. You got to put the mask on, and I always tell clients sometimes the mask isn't even for ourselves anymore. At a certain point, it's so other people feel comfortable, or they're just almost freaking out more than we are. And that mask gets heavy.
Absolutely.
So, go ahead.
I was just going to say, thank God that it gets heavy. Or else we'd always be wearing it because it's more uncomfortable. But eventually it gets the heaviness makes us more uncomfortable than the relative comfort it delivers. So I think that's what, that pain, if you will, is what motivates us to go into the discomfort of taking off our masks, violating who other people think we've always been in order to become ourselves. It's like I have to betray the sense of self that I've carried in order to become the real me. Our sense of self is not correlated with our authentic self. It's just correlated with our beliefs of who we are, which are principally shaped off of who we think other people think we are.
And that's a huge challenge, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. Can you go a little more in depth with that?
Yeah, well, I think that's the principal reason why life takes so long, because we're born, and the illusion is like, oh, you're born, you are you. And yeah, I am me. That doesn't mean I'm really connected to it emotionally and mentally and intimately. So I think life takes so long because the magnificence of who we are takes a while to get to know. It really does. And I think that's also part of what makes life so damn special. Like each of us, in my opinion, are just vibrant miracles. And the vibrant miracle of our own self is a hell of a lot to comprehend. So instead of our life being 24 hours, like, a fly's life might be, where it's kind of like, it's fully self-realized as a fly. It's gotten to know the fly miracle of itself in a short period of time. For us, we need a longer illusion of time to do that. I think none of us is who we think we are. We're significantly more than what we think we are. And I think what and who we are can never be defined based on our thinking about ourselves. And I think our thinking about ourselves, which I'm going to be contradictory because I'm thinking about the thinking of ourselves.
Meta. It's called meta.
So our thinking about ourselves is probably a principal barrier that gets in the way of knowing ourselves. I think our true self, I don't think it's our mind or thoughts. I think it's much more call it our soul, if I can use such an abstract term. And I believe Carl Jung said it best when he said, our feelings are the language of our soul. So I think we need the life process in order to feel our way into ourselves. And it typically takes us several decades, if not way more than several decades, to get it out of our heads as our principal mode of relating to ourselves, because our head our thinking, our beliefs about ourselves cannot possibly comprehend nearly the full spectrum of who we are. I think that is best done through our feeling. It's kind of like getting to know ourselves at a heart level, our feelings, the language of our soul. Okay, I'm feeling my feelings about self, and maybe that's the direct connection I have with my soul, even though they show up in what I judge to be a very human-oriented context.
Absolutely. Well, like Osho says, move 2 feet down and go into your heart, right?
I like that.
So, but I think too, we got that, we have that still watcher part, that part of ourselves that is still kind of almost watching ourselves interact on this thinking level, this level of interacting with people, and maybe that still part is our true self, and the watched part is aspects of ourselves, or the shadow or the mask, of our societal constraints or our, familial constraints or whatever. What do you think about that kind of concept?
Yeah, that rings true for me. I think actually, personally, I've gotten a lot of, benefit out of getting into what Eckhart Tolle would call the observer in us, what you call the still aspect of us. I think life is very chaotic. It's like being in the periphery of a hurricane when we can't get there. But then there's the eye of the hurricane, and I think that's the observer. And uh, I think we also want to be aware of the shadow side of being in the still aspect of our life. Am I driving myself into the still, into the observer, in order to escape my life or in order to better know my life? And I think when we retract our arms metaphorically and try to disconnect from the participatory aspect of our life, the outside of the hurricane, then we might just be using, call it spirituality, as a way of bypassing our real self. So in other words, becoming the observer, I believe, can be a powerful path to know self. I think it can also be a seductive path we take to try and escape ourself, because the stuff that's happening in our life, in our minds, our egos, the drama of life, I believe that's here for a purpose too. I don't think the purpose is to get caught up in it, take it too seriously, and define ourselves by it. But I also don't think the purpose of it is to just be purposeless and for us to try and bypass it and justify it with spiritual terminology like, oh yeah, I'm the observer, just like Eckhart Tolle. That's what I am. So to me, a whole human being, let alone an interesting human being, is someone who can go into the observer role and come out of it. Someone who can go in and understand life and observe themselves, not take themselves too seriously, and then go into the participatory aspect, get their feet dirty in the mud, yell, get upset, but also laugh and smile genuinely and not get stuck in that, and then go back into the observer role. I think all of our life processes work in rhythms. Our heart, it's not just a perpetual contracting or a perpetual expanding. It's a rhythm of back and forth, back and forth. Same thing with our breath. Same thing with our digestion. Same thing with our lymphatic fluid. So I do believe that our relationship with our soul, our psyches, whatever you want to call it, is the exact same thing. Go into the observer, go into the participant, as opposed to just be stuck as the participant in life. That's stressful as hell. It's also a flat line. Or just convince ourselves we're in the observer role. That's a flat line too.
Absolutely. Back to balance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think I think your ultra spiritual videos really amplify that balance. Because it's interesting, because I think humor really takes our guard down for the ego and allows us to take in a lot of truth. Because there is a lot of truth in your ultra spiritual videos. It's just highlighted the kind of amplified, dogmatic, judgmental part of ourselves. And but in the same sense, we're able to go, oh, you know what? Sometimes I do that shit.
Yeah, I agree. And of course I'm biased. They're my damn videos, so of course I have to think so highly of them. But yeah, from my perspective too, Scott, there is the higher purpose of those videos is to convey a message of truth, a message of, most importantly, a mirror for people to look into, in order for them to be able to say, okay, like, do I do that? Do I lose myself rebelling? Do I become that which I'm rebelling against? Am I looking to become spiritual, but with a hidden agenda of becoming superior? Who knows? And for me, I think, as you mentioned, there's humor in those, and I think the purpose of humor, as you mentioned, is it helps people consider things that they wouldn't otherwise consider. It's kind of like if my dog needs to be given a pill for medicine. Shout out to Big Pharma here. So, my dog won't eat the pill. Even if it's good for him, he won't eat it. I have to wrap it in meat, give it to my dog, so he doesn't know he's getting the deeper message of the pill. And I think humor is the meat wrapped around the message. That analogy doesn't work if you're a vegan, by the way. Or it's a lettuce wrap.
It's a lettuce wrap. Well, it's funny. I was showing your video to one of my clients, and one of the ultra spiritual videos, and after about like two minutes into it, she goes, "I'm not sure he's serious." And I was like, which was just hilarious. I mean, of course, I'm like rolling on the ground laughing. I'm like, you don't think so? And she's like, I don't think so. And I was like, okay, well, keep watching it and let me know what you think. I mean, it was resonating at a level that was just like, this kind of is like something, I think it might have been seeing a mirror there, and that was actually pretty funny. I thought you'd get a kick out of that.
Yep. Absolutely get a kick out of it. To me, humor, it's like an alchemist. Why I need to say this, probably convince myself of it, but anyway, to me, humor is an alchemist. I think we all have a defended ego, defended mind that doesn't want anything to change. It's human nature. It's part of our self-preservation. Change equals the unknown, which equals fear, which equals a threat, which equals, I might die. So the more familiar we can keep things, the better, which means we're invested in defending against change from our self-preservation perspective. I think conversely, from our self-realization perspective, change equals life. Self-preservation, change equals potential death. So nonetheless, our self-preservation-oriented ego, it absolutely wants to defend against things. When people tell us, hey, here's what's true, here's what you need to take a look at, because our beliefs are part of our sense of self, and we don't want those to change. So don't push on me, telling me what's true. Yet I think when we package it in humor, it doesn't come across as threatening to our egos, because I'm not telling you what's true, we're making you laugh. Mm-hmm. So it's like our ego gets to be in a soft state, not a defended state, when there's a message packaged in humor, which ironically enough, because the ego is soft, it allows the message to get in and penetrate to a depth that's deeper than it otherwise would if we were just functioning with our defended ego.
Absolutely.
And that's maybe just all a way of justifying, humor is part of my personality, so I want it to be like super purposeful. Who knows?
Well, I think that all the great mystics like Jesus and Osho and everything, they tell stories, or they put Zen koans, or they tell jokes. Anything that kind of brings the ego down a little bit, and it does make it softer, and it makes the pill a little easier to swallow.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that some people can handle a direct hit, and some people can't. I mean, it reminds me back in 2008 or something like that. I was at the HLC3 with Paul, and we're doing that I am, mandala, and I'm drawing mine, and I got in. I was really struggling, I was really thinking about it really hard. I was using my intuition, and I was thinking really, really hard. And finally he goes, you know what, you need to take this home, take this to the hotel, and get calm and go have some dinner, and then work on this. You're overthinking this,
Mm-hmm.
And I go, and I'm like trying to use my feeling, intuition, and I'm getting this one like cone in the top left of this mandala, and everything else was pretty balanced and mirror image, just like a good mandala is supposed to be. I was really doing a good job, and I go in there, and I come in the next day, and we're having to share it to him, and I was like, yeah, I was like, everything else is really balanced except this one little cone here. He goes, yeah, that's a thorn. He goes, it's because you're a judgmental prick.
I see, that was a little bit direct.
It was a little bit direct. And I was like, at first I was kind of like, well, damn. But then I was like, well, I don't know that I can really dispute that. You know what I mean? I was like, But it's interesting. He goes, if you can ever get rid of that, you'll see all these XYZ things, and he goes, so that's your thing to work on. Get to where you can have this mandala without that. And but sometimes direct works, and now I can laugh about it. Then it wasn't as funny.
Yeah, absolutely. My personal experience is the more of a relationship we have with the person, especially say a mentor or a teacher, the more it's like the safer it feels to accept direct feedback. Coming from a stranger off the street, it's kind of like, well, screw you. But having someone like Paul say the same thing, it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to really consider that. I think the exception to that rule is typically intimate relationships.
Yeah.
We typically need to fight against everything our partner says. It's work to be done for most of us on that.
No, absolutely. It's amazing that I think part of it's that safety. You want that person to kind of not be upset with you ever, not to, to really like you. And you're like, you don't like everything about me? This is really appalling to my conscious mind.
Well, my mom said I'm a gift from God.
Exactly.
She actually never said that, but I want her to have said that, and I want you to believe that.
Exactly. Well, she's the only one that watches the videos, right?
She likes all of them.
She likes this. It's 10,000 likes, but it's all a pseudonym of her going online, right?
It's got a lot of different accounts for sure.
Exactly. So going into a little bit more serious aspect, what do you think are some of the major or a major problem facing humanity now that you're kind of concerned with, that you want kind of to tap into? When I'm going to go from humanity to man individually, so keep that in mind. My next question is going to be a follow-up, which is, on a personal level. So on a humanitarian level and in a personal level.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's so many angles that deserve to be looked at. I'll share the first one that comes to mind. I won't by any means suggest it's the primary, yet it's one that has certainly personal concern in my mind and heart for humanity, and that is people looking for personal satisfaction in ways that are inherently unsatisfying. People looking to feel gratified in ways that offer no inherent gratification. That can be consumerism. That can be essentially boils down to people looking to feel happy outside themselves. And, this probably won't be too much of a surprise to anybody who hasn't been in a coma for the past 50 years. But people get very money hungry. And people really make their life orbit the concept of money. And it's like people shape their whole damn life around money, and typically trying to get more of it than what they have, and typically viewing themselves as not good enough for not having more. And when they do have more, because some people are really good at accumulating money, so once they reach millions or billions, then they still criticize themselves as not being good enough to have more. It's enough is never enough when we're looking to complete ourselves on the outside. And I think people are literally willing to kill, which is so frightening, literally willing to kill in the name of the illusion that happiness can be found through money. So, done literally, someone kills a lady to take her purse. And I think on a more of a big picture scale, we all have a piece of that pie. Everybody in the Western world, but I'm grateful for all the Western conveniences, yet some of our privileges come at the expense of people around the world going without, people around the world starving, people around the world having their clean drinking water taken away and shipped off and sold in Fiji water bottles. And And while that, okay, those things that get taken from them, they may not literally be money, but they're material goods that are very much outside of us, very related to money. And I'm by no means perfect, yet part of the journey that I'm doing my best to imperfectly stumble on and make progress on is learning how to be content being me, learning how to be content with what's in front of me without this anxiety-driven need to accumulate more, which when you connect the damn breadcrumb trails, that more that I'm anxiously trying to acquire that will never satisfy me. It's like eating empty calories. It makes me fat, but it never satisfies me. That breadcrumb trail ultimately goes back to someone having a worse off life than me. So, and I think because the world in some respects seems like a big place, it can be frighteningly easy to be disconnected from the people on the other side of the world who speak a different language, maybe have a different color skin, maybe have different values about life. So we can be so disconnected from them being a human just like us that it makes us easy to contribute to their demise, to their life having a lower quality and their life potentially ending in the name of the conveniences, the money, the material that we want. That's scary for me. And, by the way, I don't want to just be a pessimist. That's me doing my best to see things as a realist, all filtered through my delusional opinion. And I will say, I think probably more than ever before, we're at a waking up point. You have to try really hard to keep your head in the damn sand now. And some people are trying really hard. I do sometimes. Other people do all the time. Whatever it is. But there is a force of levity that's pulling our heads out of the sand so that we can see what's going on outside of our own self-centered world that's motivated out of trying to gratify ourselves through means that offer no inherent gratification.
I cannot agree with you more, and I think you said it better than I could say it. And one of the things, it's that old New Age thing, don't speak negative, ignore the negative, but I think that's kind of naive and immature. There is some seriously negative stuff happening, but in acknowledging the negative, you can then, being that it's an aspect of reality, you can then change reality. If you don't know what it is, or you're denying it or distorting it, you're never going to fix it. So, I think that's a challenge. And what do you do? That's pretty big. It's pretty global. That's pretty daunting, I guess, is a word. You're like, damn, now I feel like an asshole. I just drank Fiji water. So what do we do about it? How do we start, moving, in your opinion?
Yeah, in my opinion, I don't think anything trumps Gandhi's words. Be the change you wish to see in the world. I think no matter how loud we yell and scream from the rooftops, hey, everybody, wake up. Look at what's going on. I think no matter how loud we scream, our heart and our actions will always come across louder and more influential. Other people can recognize our words and register their conscious meaning, yet unconsciously, I believe us embodying Gandhi's truth, be the change you wish to see in the world, that's far more impactful than just us screaming empty words. So to me, that is huge. And of course, I think some of us we have this inner calling, whether it annoys us or gratifies us. We have an inner calling to speak a message in our own unique way. Whether that message is eat clean food, whether that message is heal your heart, whether that message is pay attention to your higher self, or whether that message is respect Mother Nature, I think all those roads lead to Rome, the molesty church version of Rome. Like
exactly.
Is Rome a bad place? I don't want to go to the roads that lead there. But I think all those roads lead to the same destination, which is we make the inner and outer world a better place. I think all those messages trace back to an awareness that all is one. And I don't mean to sound ultra spiritual, like I walk around perpetually believing or feeling everything's all one. Like, I feel very separate a lot of times. So, long story short, I think when we have an inner calling to speak a message, that message is wanting to come through us for a really good reason. And I think we do ourselves a great service, and we do the world a great service when we simply honor the message that wants to live through us. Whether the message is, hey, look at this amazing art that I painted, or, hey, let me talk to you about nutrition. When we speak our message, I think ultimately it is really contributing to the betterment of, this kind of yucky-looking problem we just outlined.
Exactly. Well, the other thing I've noticed is that sometimes people have a specific starting point, which may be their calling, it may be their, their pain, that may be what's calling them or whatever. Maybe they start eating clean because, they got sick. And then they start going, oh, I'm feeling so much better. And then they awaken to, hey, if I move a little better, now I can, drink more water. Now I can sleep better. And then they get, they may lead them to the thinking or the spiritual part. Sure. And then, some people are artists. They're going to be more artsy, and that's going to lead them to, thinking about things and studying the chakras. And then they, they may not eat well, but then eventually they're like, wait, I could probably amplify some of this or whatever. And so, it kind of fuels, each thing fuels another step up the ladder, I guess, if you will, or,
Well said, my wise friend. Absolutely. By the way, you look super wise with that beard. I feel I'm going to be honest with you, I feel a little inadequate because your beard looks a little longer and more spiritual than mine.
I tried. Do you think it needs to go longer? Like, when does it get to wizard versus guru?
Yeah, I think upper abdomen is the cutoff point where, yeah, you're no longer spiritual. You're just kind of Harry Potter-ish.
Exactly.
You're the wizard now.
I try. I had to get a haircut, and I only have one guy that I let touch my beard because I've had people mess it up. And there's something like really like obsessive with me about it in the sense of like, I don't know if it's my nice mask that helps cushion me from the world. Like one of my coaches tells me, she's like, when are you going to shave that shit? Because what are you hiding from? And I'm like, you know what? It's fashionable, I was like, yeah. Don't bother me with my beard yet. I was like, it's my thing. So the other question I had for you is, from a standpoint of who are some of the people that influenced you as you were kind of coming up? Do you have a thing where you can kind of trace your lineage of study, or is it just somebody still some that you've drug with you? Or because I remember you telling me a story years ago where instead of like hiding comic books and porn in your textbooks, you were hiding like check manuals and
the comic books and porn, like those are two very different worlds. Both got included.
Well, whatever, like you hold one book up and there's another one inside it. Porn, comics, comic porn. There is a whole
that's right
thing that's integrated, right?
Be open-minded about this.
Exactly. So who are your kind of influences? I know you said that you used to hide the check manuals inside your college textbooks. Probably much better reading. But who else? Yeah. What else?
Yeah, so Paul was certainly the first meaningful mentor in my life, and he was a prominent, beacon of light in my life for solid 10 years. And that's not to say now he's meaningless. It's just to say like that we were just around each other a lot and interacted a lot, and there was a lot of fruit I was getting from that tree. for a solid 10 years. That's, yeah, I'm so grateful for that. And overlapping with that, when I was about 23, I found a vastly powerful mentor, a guy named John McMullen of Journeys of Wisdom. And he's very much in the emotional healing, spiritual connection realms. And so I learned an immense amount of emotional healing work with him, did an immense amount of inner healing and balancing with me. And so the way I work with my typical client today, a lot of that has the fingerprints of John McMullen's work all over it. And of course, I do my version of his work rather than trying to just be a loyal parrot, or what would John do? What would Jesus do? Or whatever. So John McMullen have thus far been the two primary mentors in my life. And I will add just a footnote, because this isn't speaking directly to your question. Other teachers in my life, I look at every client I work with as a teacher for me. And I know that's like cliche as hell, and it's true as hell too.
That's going to be your next shirt, cliche as hell.
It's so cliche to say cliche anymore.
It is.
I like that. Cliche as hell. I can't think about that. So, on an everyday basis, I do respect that the real wisdom of the work that I have to offer comes from when I'm working with people. So each client I'm working with is teaching me something new, not only about facilitating healing work, but certainly also about myself.
Absolutely. Do you have any, I know from like myself, never met Osho, never going to meet him. He died when I was 6, but through his books, through some of his wisdom, I've been able to glean it and take information and just like anything, you go through that path, and not everything about him I agree with. Not everything is, there's the what do you call it, conformist, rebellion aspect of it. Sure. But, I find that even though I've never met him, never been alive, he was definitely an influencer. Do you have any of those?
Yeah, certainly. By the way, it sounds like your 6-year-old inner child feels responsible for Osho's death. We'll
probably my fault.
Off air.
He was in the States at that time, I think.
Got to talk about this. I think you're carrying a heavy burden, Scott. It's not yours. Yes, Carl Jung's work, who died probably 20 years or so, 18 years before I was born. I think Carl Jung, he was a Swiss psychiatrist, and that was just his professional label. He was a dude in tune with the universe, and his work is amazing.
Absolutely agree.
I don't understand his work, ironically enough. Like, when I read Carl Jung books, like, it's just written in this, like, horribly just academic language. It's translated from Swiss, so I don't understand his work, but I really enjoy other people writing about Carl Jung's work, yet still paying respect. It's kind of like chipping back to the drug dealer if you've got your own operation. Want to chip back respect to Carl Jung.
Exactly.
That accurate analogy.
Like Robert A. Johnson or someone.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's one of them. My favorite Jungian trained psychologist, my favorite author, a guy named James Hollis. And he's still alive. He's getting up there a little bit in years. I've had an opportunity to see him speak in person. But his books, his audio books, have been very influential, even though, for all intents and purposes, he and I it's never been a one-on-one FaceTime relationship of learning from him.
Right.
And, I think, Buddha, he seems like a cool cat. I've never indoctrinated myself in Buddhism, but when I look at just some of these old Buddha quotes, I mean, who knows if he ever said any of that crap? But if you have something to say, just say it and then put quote by Buddha.
Buddha.
People will pay attention, and Buddha's attorneys aren't going to sue you for it.
Exactly.
So, I think the wisdom that allegedly comes from Buddha certainly been very impactful. I think that whole kind of like seek the middle way, seek balance, that's a proverbial message. And no matter where I go, what I do, what I'm looking at, that message has relevance to me.
Absolutely. I'll tell you my Cliff Notes version of how I differentiate Jung and Freud. I always say, they're both talk about libido. Freud's all about, sex with the libido, and Jung is all about life energy as the libido. So chi, prana, life energy,
I like that summarization. Absolutely.
That's the thing. That's awesome. So, is there anything else you wanted to touch base on? Because I think you have just downloaded a significant amount of information for people, and I'm sure they're really into it and really benefiting from it. And I want to definitely have you back and have you, if you're available, because I think that you just drop a lot of wisdom, and you were funny. You lived up to it.
Did I?
I had expectations, and I wasn't disappointed.
Well, good. Well, I was just reading off the script you sent me, so anything that was funny or not was your fault.
Exactly. Anything else that's kind of just hot and heavy that you think might be a knowledge bomb, a wisdom bomb for everybody?
Yeah, a quick thought that comes to my mind, and I'll say it. I don't know if I say it because I need to hear it or because I want other people to hear it. Probably a lot of both, actually. And that is, I'd love to invite everybody to really pay attention to your inner wisdom. And our inner wisdom doesn't speak to us through English. It speaks to us through these subtle yet very sharply precise bits of wisdom that might come to us through feelings, hunches, desires, whatever it is. But I do believe that we are all our own wisest source of information, of wisdom. I don't think there's any book we could ever read that can trump the wisdom of our body, the wisdom of our mind. So to me, it's a mistake to give our power away to other sources of information. I forgot who said it. Insert fancy name
Buddha.
That'll make it. Yoda must have said, we should all make our own self our primary physician, and anybody outside of us is at best secondary counsel. I think we all have our compass inside that's leading the way. When we feel out of balance with maybe our health, maybe our place in life, relationships, I think it just means we're out of touch with our compass. And I think the discomfort of life, again, be it health, dissatisfaction, whatever it is, depression, are wonderful wake-up calls that are basically saying through their discomfort, listen more deeply to your inner compass. It's talking to you. It always is. Do you have the sensitivity and the courage and the vulnerability to listen? Easier said than done, but I do know that I could use to drink a hell of a lot more of that.
I concur with that assessment. I think that's a great parting wisdom, because I don't think our society allows us to do this. Have you read Weapons of Mass Instruction?
No.
It's by John, I think, Gatto. He's saying, this 12 plus years of slavery that we're subjected to in our traditional education program really diminishes our capacity to be an expert of ourselves. We don't know enough. We are taught that knowledge is outside. There's people smarter than us. There's people more capable than us. And that message just begins to run a bad programming. And I think that's hard to overcome unless you consciously listen to someone like you and choose to go, okay, let me see if I can be my best wisdom instructor.
It is, in part of that, I think what you're saying is it means we take responsibility for ourselves. And that almost sounds mundane, yet I think it also deserves to be said nonetheless. And that is scary as hell. It is I mean, it sounds glorious on paper when we think about it in a detached way, like, oh yeah, it'd be awesome to really get in touch with my inner wisdom, my inner compass. It's scary as hell, because my experience is our inner compass never directs us deeper into our comfort zone. It's always asking us to go where we've never been. It's asking us to go into the mystery of our life, not the familiar known, not recreating familiar patterns of the past. It's asking us to go where we've never been. And how exciting is it to walk into a dark forest where there aren't trails paved? That's what I think our compass asks us to go. It asks us to go where we don't know where we're going. And it's human nature to be afraid of that. And I think a willingness to tolerate that fear is a necessity in order for us to be willing to follow the guidance of our comfort. So in other words, I think we got to be afraid. We got to give ourselves permission to be afraid rather than being afraid to be afraid, which gives us the illusion that we're not afraid because we're just afraid to actually go into the source of fear. So I think life lived well means we scare ourselves, which simultaneously exhilarates ourselves, which simultaneously embeds us with even more courage to go even deeper into the mystery of our own self.
I think that's some great truth. So thank you for sharing with us today, and I hope that we can have you back at some point because it was I learned something. I got to laugh. I hope you did too. And I appreciate you joining us today, JP.
Absolutely, Scott. It's been a pleasure, and I'd love to come back sometime soon.
Let us know where everyone can get in touch with you.
I think the one place that's probably the best place to find me is my YouTube channel, which is Awaken with JP, youtube.com/Awaken with JP. You can subscribe. I put out new videos every week. And if you find me horribly offensive, then that's the place online that you'll want to be sure to avoid.
There you go. Or complain,
That's leave me mean comments on my videos. That'd be awesome.
Exactly.
Any attention is attention.
Exactly. Thanks, JP.
You're welcome, my brother.
Later.